Hello my dear friends, you're in the Military Summary channel, and in this short video we're going to discuss the most important events that took place during the previous night of the local time. We have a lot of very interesting updates, so let's start. And first we're going to talk about Kharkiv direction. We have few important things from the territory. As you can see, we have adjusted the map and we've colored this territory as a gray zone. The thing is that not even like as a gray zone, but as a contested area, because the Russian sources published few videos of how they were fighting with the Ukrainians in this area, more precisely in this part of Hlyboke and in this one. As for this geolocation, as for this icon, the group of forces north published the video of how the Russians managed to discover the Ukrainian abandoned armored vehicle, armored personnel carrier, and as a result of Lancet strike, that personnel carrier was destroyed, which confirms that Ukrainians first entered this territory, then the Ukrainians landed infantry, and after that the Russians destroyed the abandoned, let's say, vehicle. Furthermore, we got additional video, this one. In this video we can see how the Russian troopers were storming and clearing the Hlyboke village, the part of Hlyboke village that was captured by the Ukrainians as a result of that counterattack. First we saw the vehicle was destroyed that Ukrainians were using, and after that we can see a very close battle combat between Ukrainians and Russian soldiers. So this is the situation. If summarize everything, we can make a conclusion that during the previous 24 hours, probably during the previous weekend, the Ukrainians counterattack using this route of offensive. The Ukrainians landed their infantry somewhere here. After that, when the Ukrainians reached this line, they, let's say, stretch their forces and capture most likely these buildings. Also, the Ukrainians, some squads moved further in the eastern direction and captured these buildings as well. After that, the Ukraine armored vehicle was destroyed as a result of Lancet strike, and later the Russians, after the Ukrainians, let's say, finished their offensive operation, the Russians launched their own counterattack, and there were very heavy clashes exactly in this area. So maybe the Russians managed to restore control over this territory, because if you have access to the map, you're gonna see that as a result of close combat, very short combat, the Ukrainians lost their positions, but I have some doubts whether the Russians managed to restore control over these buildings. Anyway, we see that Ukrainians continue counterattacks. Most likely during the upcoming week we're gonna see significant number of such attempts from the Ukrainian side, and maybe the Ukrainians will try to force the Russians to fall back from Hlyboke completely. Furthermore, we have additional reports that the Ukrainians continue concentration of forces in the vicinity of Hlyboke, Liptsi. Those attacks that we just discussed wasn't like the real offensive, that was just recon and combat, where Ukrainians were trying to understand which positions of the armored forces of Russian Federation are weak, and probably starting of Monday, Tuesday and Wednesday of this week, the Ukrainians will begin their attempts, very big attacks, so very big offensives on the Russian positions. Now let's move to Volchansk direction. We have a lot of very interesting updates from this territory as well. Once again, another day with completely different and opposite reports from both sides. The Russians are saying this morning that as a result of offensive, the Ukrainians were completely forced to fall back from Aggregate plant. This territory was completely captured by the Russians, completely cleared by the Russians, and if it's true, of course, today or maybe tomorrow we're going to receive additional updates, maybe some Russian flag, maybe the Ministry of Defense of Russian Federation will give us this update, or maybe the Group of Forces North official channel will announce about complete control over the territory. On the other hand, we continue receiving updates from the Russian sources of how they were bombing and attacking the Ukrainian forces in Volchansk, in the northern Volchansk, in the southern Volchansk, in the eastern Volchansk, with aviation bombs, with flamethrower systems, with multiple launch rocket systems, so which confirms that Ukrainians continue redeployment and moving forces from the south to the north with the purpose to, let's say, counterattack the Russians and to force them to fall back. As for the real situation on the ground, we have reports that Ukrainians stopped any attempts to send forces from the south to the north due to significant losses while trying to cross Volcha River. So the situation is that Ukrainians still have possibilities, maybe not so reliable, but possibilities to send forces from the south south in the northern direction through Vovcha River, and they can send just infantry, light infantry, without proper equipment and of course without armored vehicles. And if Ukrainians understand, if they want to force the Russians to fall back, they need to send armored vehicles, heavy armored vehicles to the north, and only in this case they will be able to have at least some chances to win the battle for northern Volchansk. So that's why the Ukrainians, according to the Russians, try to counterattack in the area between Tikha and eastern Volchansk. So this is the main roads of Ukraine attacks, because this is the only area that Ukrainians can safely send their armored vehicles from the south to the north. So this is the only way, because this area is located very far from the line of combat contact. There are significant number of pontoon bridges, there are forests that Ukrainians can use to hide their equipment, and this is the only area that Ukrainians can use for concentration of forces. So most likely during the next few days, also Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, the Ukrainians will try to gather a big armed feast, and then they will try to attack the Russians here, trying to restore control over the eastern Volchansk and this main road and the village of Tikha. If they can do this, then they're gonna have some chances to defeat the Russians in the north. If they can't do this, then no chances for them to restore control, and sooner or later the Russians will finish the battle for the north of Volchansk, and the Russians will start thinking how to cross Vovcha River and how to land infantry in the southern part. Also, we have additional reports from the Ukrainian sources that you can understand that sooner or later, and there are very high chances that they might be defeated in the north of Volchansk. So that's why they understand they need to prepare Vovcha River all over the river, because they understand that the Russians can cross it. So according to information we have, the Ukrainians concentrated and stretched the forces of newly created 153rd Infantry Brigade along the river, with the purpose not to allow the Russians to cross the area. Now let's move further. We have additional updates from different directions, and first let's talk about Avdiivka area. We have small gains by the Russian armed forces. According to information we have, there are still very heavy clashes for the main stronghold in the area of Sokol, and we have additional updates among the fields between Voshod, Sokol, Novopokrovsk. In this video we can see the Ukrainians were FPV droning the Russian armored vehicle with infantry on board, so the Russians were moving something like this and the Ukrainians attacked them. This video confirms that after the end of the battle for the central part and the eastern part of Sokol, the Russians are mainly concentrated in, let's say, in their attempts to concentrate at, let's say, critical mass in this direction, with the purpose to move further in the western direction, with the purpose to enter the village by the name of Voshod, so the next, let's say, village in this direction. So this is approximately the situation in this area. Also, we have different updates and different changes on map in the south Donetsk direction and, let's say, western Donetsk direction. As for Krasnogorovka, today, according to information we have, according to pro-Ukrainian mappers Deep State, the Russians managed to improve their positions and to capture another block of high-rise area. So, once again, if you remember, just yesterday we were talking that the Russians captured these buildings, but we had some doubts about just these buildings, and we reported that most likely the Russians captured every single building in high-rise area, and today this information was confirmed by pro-Ukrainian mappers. As for South Donetsk direction, we have a additional update and, let's say, confirmation from Syriac. He reported that the Russians improved their position significantly on the road between Solotka and Vadiana, but these updates took place a few days ago. He's just confirmed this information because he was absent for a very long time. Vremivka tactical bridgehead, the Russian sources published the video of the process of how they were storming and attacking the Ukrainian positions in the northern part of Staromayorsk. This is another evidence that the village is under complete Russian control, and also in this video we can see how the Russian infantry, the Russian stormtroopers, were moving from the northern part of Staromayorsk further in the northern direction, in the northern of these farms. So as you can see, after a very short operational pause, the Russians renewed their offensive with the purpose to move further, let's say, to capture Makarovka and to cut the Ukrainians in the northern part of Urozhaine by establishing complete fire control over 0518 road that goes from Velika Novoselovka to Urozhaine, that still is let's say, partly under control of armed forces of Ukraine. When talking about Kherson direction, we haven't received a lot of updates, just the regular activity of FPV drones and nothing more. We have additional updates from Kiev itself. According to information we have, a few more, let's say thousands, more than 2,750 former Ukrainian prisoners have already joined the ranks of the Ukraine armed forces. Obviously, the Ukrainians need around 1.5 months to train them, and after that, most likely they would be sent in some stormtrooper squads somewhere in Kharkiv direction, or maybe somewhere on Avdiivka direction. Also, we have report that the Ukrainians confirmed that the next peace summit will be about ending the war with the participation of Ukraine and the Russian Federation. That was stated by the Minister of Foreign Affairs Hlyboke of Ukraine. It's obvious that to the end the war, both parties mind our work is to ensure that Ukraine is in the strongest positions at this time. And also we have report that the next round of the peace summit is going to take place within 5 months, which confirms that obviously we're going to see one more offensive operation or counter-offensive operation, either from the Ukrainian or from the Russian side. Once again, both sides need stronger positions before the beginning of the negotiation. And that's it for the short video. Military Summary channel reminds you, we condemn any violence in the world. Thank you for watching. Subscribe to my channel, put your likes, join my Patreon, and have a good day. Bye bye.